Hey guys, this is Robert with Outdoor Tactics. Today we're going to be taking a look at my hunting arrows for the 2023 whitetail season. So first things first, you might notice a little bit of bump in quality from previous videos. We have invested into a nicer camera here for the channel, so that's awesome to be able to do and bring you guys a little bit higher quality content and videos to the channel. I'm going to try and keep this up in the future, so if you're interested in seeing where the channel goes from here, please do consider subscribing. It is free and it lets me know that you guys are interested in what I've got to bring to the table. So that out of the way, let's get into the video. These are my hunting arrows for the last 2 years. I don't believe I've changed them in 2 deer seasons here in Ohio, and there's good reason for that, and we're going to get into it in this video. We are going to talk about every single component from nock to broadhead, why I chose them, and why you might want to follow suit, or in some cases, maybe not. So what am I looking for in a hunting arrow? Well, it's a little bit different than something you might shoot in a target bow or for 3D shoots or something like that. A hunting arrow needs to perform a little bit differently once it actually reaches a target in order to deliver that ethical harvest that we're all looking for as archery hunters. So a few things that go into a hunting arrow. First of all, it needs to be supremely accurate. That goes for pretty much any arrow on the market that you're building for any type of a serious use. You're going to want as high of a degree of accuracy as you can get for your dollar spent. As well as that, it needs to be very, very robust. They need to be durable enough to survive an impact on an animal, possibly passing through that animal and hitting something on the other side. They need to be able to last the entire season while also retaining their shape, not bending out and developing straightness issues. And they need to be built heavy enough to actually take the game that you are looking to hunt with them. In my case, whitetails are not that big of an animal. They've got some thick bones in some areas, but typically speaking, you can get away with a fairly average arrow weight without having to go super duper heavy in order to harvest them. Obviously, the arrow weight and F.O.C debate is hot right now. Everybody's always talking about it, and we will talk F.O.C and arrow weight numbers at the end of the video. But for right now, I just want to get into the components that I used to actually complete this build. So first things first, let's talk arrow shafts. This is what the entire arrow is built around, obviously, and it's the first piece that you need to buy if you're in the market for something similar. So what I have right here is the Easton Axis 5mm carbon shaft. They've got multiple 5mm offerings, but I went with the standard carbon arrow. I'm not a huge fan of the FMJ arrows, although they are a great option as well. Just for me, I'm going to stick to straight carbon for a number of reasons. However, I went with a 5mm diameter and the 0.001 straightness level. So if I'm investing in an arrow shaft, the last thing I really want to worry about is the straightness level of it. You can get a little bit tricky on making your dollar stretch a little further by trimming the wobbly ends off of your arrow when you go to cut them. What you can do if you pick the 0.003 or 0.006 straightness level of Easton Axis arrow, you can run it on an arrow spinner and then select which side is wobblier, more out of spec, and then go ahead and cut your carbon off of that side, or bias it, cut half your length off this end and half your length off this end if they're fairly similar. So a little bit of a hack there for arrow builders getting into it. However, the shafts that I've gone with are a 300 spine arrow. If you look on the Easton spine chart on their website, you're going to find that for my build at 28 inches of draw and 72 pounds, they're calling for a 340 spine arrow, but they're not taking into account that I have added point weight with my insert. When you add point weight with an insert, you need to spine up, down in number, up in spine stiffness. Those numbers can get a little bit confusing, so I just want to be clear on that. You want to go with a stiffer arrow because the law of inertia, I took physics in college, look at me. The law of inertia states that objects in motion stay in motion and objects at rest stay at rest. So when this arrow fires out of your bow, the first thing that happens is the string pushes on the nock. There is a moment in time where this nock is moving, but your arrow point is not. What that causes is that flex that we see in our arrows. You see it in slow-mo footage. It's really, really pronounced for you trad bow guys that are shooting softer arrows that need to bend around a riser, or wooden arrows or whatever have you. What this causes is a need for a stiffer arrow. This 300 is going to bend similar to a 340. Now I would imagine that a 340 with no extra point weight and a 100 grain tip is going to fly beautifully, but for this case, when I add point weight, that is going to impede its ability to fly out of your bow perfectly tuned. And you need a perfectly tuned arrow and bow system in order to shoot these broadheads. But that's going to wrap up why I picked the Easton Axis. Let's move on to the nock. So the nock on any arrow is extremely important. It's the only thing contacting your string. It is the launch point of the arrow itself. So you need to go something high quality. In this case, I've gone with a lighted nock. Now, there's a few reasons that I went with a lighted nock for bow hunting specifically, and we will get into that really quick. But first off, I just want to show you the brightness of these nocks, and I've been really impressed with them. They're pretty much the only lighted nock that I go to anymore because they have been really reliable and really bright for my uses. So there you see it right there. It is a very, very bright nock going down range, almost obnoxiously bright once you get into low light situations, which interestingly enough is usually when people are taking shots at deer right at dusk and dawn. So something to think about there. So why have I gone with a lighted nock instead of maybe saving a few dollars and just going with a standard Easton X nock? One, you're able to track exactly where that arrow flies and exactly where that arrow impacts. Now when you fire an arrow at an animal, it is now your responsibility to track that arrow until it stops. The reason we want to do that is because our decision-making process after a shot is going to depend on shot placement. Did you hit it right in the boiler room, right behind the shoulder? Was it a little bit high because the deer moved or ducked? Did you drop it back a little bit further into the liver, stomach, guts area? Did something go wrong? Did your arrow flight look bad? A million different things come into play when you actually have the chance to harvest an animal, so being able to see exactly what your arrow does in real time is extremely important. Secondary reason for wanting a lighted nock. If you happen to shoot an animal and the arrow does not pass fully through, and you have to track that animal in the dark or around sunset or any time when there's low light conditions, that animal now has a lighted nock in it, and you can find it much easier. They're essentially now glowing in the dark, which is an advantage for obvious reasons. Third, and possibly most important, because that's what it's all about, is that they look really cool flying through the air. They look good for cameras, they look good shooting in the backyard with your buddies. They're a ton of fun to just strap on a lighted nock and see how your arrows fly. They are also making it easier for you to observe flight issues. If you are experiencing flight issues with fixed blade broadheads, these will tell you a lot easier than possibly a non-lighted nock would, because you can actually track how that arrow is coming out of the bow with the naked eye. So that's awesome. So that's why I always recommend a lighted nock for whitetail hunting, or really any kind of hunting you're doing where it is legal. There are certain states that do not allow you to use those. So that is why I went with the nocturnal lighted nocks. Let's move on to the fletchings. So fletchings, or in this case vanes, are a really interesting topic. People will tell you that you should go one way or another for a bunch of different reasons. In this case, I've gone with the AAE hybrid vanes. They are 2.3 inches long, and I'll put the actual dimensions up on the screen right now. But another 2.3 inches long, and I've gone with a quad fletch. The reason I went with AAE hybrids this year is because I went with AAE Max Stealths last year. I loved the stealth vanes. I went with a 3 vane, I believe it was a 3 or 4 degree helical. And in this case, I've got a 4 fletch with a 3 to 4 degree helical as well. Reasons I like a shorter vane. They clear a riser or a rest much easier, which is awesome. And also a 4 fletch is going to give you a little bit more steering capability than a 3 fletch might. Now, if your arrow is not tuned correctly, these broadheads are still not going to fly. I don't care what fletchings you put on the back. I don't care if you put a parachute back here. You need to have a well-tuned arrow and bow system to shoot these, as I've already said. However, a little bit extra never hurt, so I went with the 4 fletch. In this case, I don't think I would see a massive performance dip if I went with the 3 fletch AAE Max Stealths like I have in the past. But regardless, that is what I've gone with. They've been durable. I haven't had them shear off yet, unless I shoot them with a field point or something and tear them. They have stayed extremely rugged and durable on the backs of my arrows for the past 2 years, so no complaints there. I love AAE products, and if you haven't seen them before, you haven't tried them out yourself, I recommend giving them a shot. Now let's move from the back of the arrow up to the front and talk about inserts. So if you buy a 5mm arrow from Easton, they're going to come with stock inserts. It's their hit insert system. They actually reside down inside of the shaft instead of being exposed on the outside. So when you look at your arrow with a hit insert installed, it's just the broadhead backing up directly onto the carbon. I don't love that design. I know that people have perfectly good luck with them and they work fine. I'm sure that their functionality is just fine. However, I have seen them back out a little bit easier and end up coming out in targets more often than I've seen other inserts do that. So I tend to usually upgrade my inserts right out of the box with Easton arrows. Again, your mileage may vary. I know people love them. I'm not saying that they won't work for you. I'm just saying that through my personal experience, I've seen them have some issues. So I generally steer away from those stock inserts and upgrade that first. In this case, I've got an Ethics Archery 100 grain outsert. So Ethics is a company that's been making waves in the market for a while now. They make really, really high quality arrow components. Their machining processes are very, very accurate, and their steel quality is also very, very high. So what you get is a very highly accurate and durable system down at the tip of your arrow, which is where a lot of your performance is coming from on these slightly heavier hunting arrows. I've gone with the 100 grain model. You can take side cutters and actually just cut off a section of the insert to customize the weight. All this stuff is listed on their website. I recommend checking them out for sure. However, that 100 grains up front is going to add to my penetration probability on whitetails, and I love that number. 200 grains up front is great for me. We'll see what happens next year, but for now, 100 grain insert up front has been wonderful for me. Let's get into the fun part now and start talking broadheads. So as you've already seen, I am running a 3-blade fixed head this season. Now, this is the Muzzy Trocar 100 grain model. I have a confession to make right up front. I did not hunt with the Muzzy 100 grain last season. I switched to them this season. My historically accurate and preferred broadhead for whitetail hunting has been the Magnus Black Hornet. So the Black Hornets are what I ran last year, and they worked famously. They ended up getting me my biggest buck of my life, which is really cool. Going into this season, I replaced the strings on my bow, and my bow build is actually in a different YouTube video. If you're interested in it, I will leave it up in the cards. It's a Hoyt Torex XT, and I think it might just be the best bow per dollar on the market today, but check out the video, see if you agree. So anyways, I replaced the strings on my bow, and as you may or may not know, there is a string break-in period where those strings will stretch to come to their natural resting place on your bow, and some things can kind of change in the tuning process. So I shot that bow, ran hundreds of arrows through it pre-season, and then by the time that season was upon me, I had kind of run into some hiccups in my planning, and I hadn't checked the broadhead tune on my bow since then. I went to broadhead test some arrows, and all of my broadheads were hitting a couple of inches low at about 30-40 yards. Not ideal going right into season. So the quick band-aid fix, which I don't recommend, but it is what ended up happening for me this year, is to shoot an arrow with less drag up front. So you will see here the difference between the size of a Muzzy Trocar and a Magnus Black Hornet. The Black Hornet is going to catch more air on the front of your arrow. Not an issue if your system is tuned correctly. But when I shot the Trocars next to the Black Hornets in a 3D target, the difference in impact between the field point and the broadhead was minimal, out to 40 yards, which is generally my hunting range. So in the interest of saving time and making sure that my arrows were flying my field points, or my broadheads were flying my field points, I did switch to the Muzzy Trocars this year. I am planning on switching back to the Magnus Black Hornet in the future for a number of reasons. They're resharpenable, super durable, awesome lifetime warranty, very accurate when your bow is tuned correctly, 4-blade setup, cut on contact head. There's a bunch of different reasons to love these broadheads, and I will be switching back to them next year due to a bit of a performance shortcoming in the Muzzy Trocar this year. So we will get into performance of my arrows right now. So earlier this year, I was lucky enough to put an arrow into a whitetail doe with the Muzzy Trocar. That doe did not go very far at all, and the harvest was successful. Caveat, the broadhead did not survive. That is borderline unacceptable to me, simply because I want to shoot a broadhead that is going to survive impact with the animal that I'm hunting, and that's mostly a confidence in the durability, and also being able to make an ethical shot and then just resharpen my broadheads, rehone that edge, and then take it out and hunt with it again. I think that's a super big advantage of fixed blade broadheads that don't have replaceable blades. And the Muzzy Trocars do, and they're a thinner blade profile than the Black Hornets or even the Magnus Stingers. And for that reason, it went in right behind the shoulder of this animal, and it exited at the shoulder joint on the opposite side. and stopped in that opposite shoulder. Broke the shoulder, immobilized the deer, which was awesome. However, the blades on the Muzzy trocar ended up twisting, as well as the ferrule. So that broadhead was toast at the end of that. And it made me wonder, if I were to hit a shoulder on the entrance side, by the time my broadhead made it through that, which I'm assuming it would, what are those blades going to look like? How sharp are they going to be? How structurally sound are they still going to be along with the broadhead? And are they going to be able to do their job? Maybe yes, but maybe not. It's not really a risk I'm willing to take, so I think I'm going to move back to cut-on contact fixed blade heads with pretty thick blade profiles and a resharpenable design in the future. Couple that with Magnus's lifetime warranty, man, they're tough to beat. I really like the Black Hornet heads or the Stinger model. Now let's talk F.O.C and arrow weight, because I know a lot of people are very interested in that. Total arrow weight is coming in at right around 540 grains with this setup, and total F.O.C is coming in at about 14.5 to 15%. That 15% F.O.C number kind of becomes the sweet spot that a lot of people are aiming for, without going so heavy that your pin gaps are getting super wide and you're having to account for a lot of drop out at range. Now, with today's technology, you can get extremely accurate readings on how far away an animal is, and then if you're using a dial-up sight or a fixed pin sight, regardless, you're able to place that arrow dependent on the range extremely well. But in today's day and age of really fast bows, heavy draw weights, really cutting edge bow designs, we're able to push these 540 grains to 600 grains, 650 grain arrows pretty freaking fast. And that's awesome to see, because I want the delivery of energy on impact. I want that deep penetration. I want that structural integrity. And I want 2 holes through every single deer that I shoot. I may make a video in the future talking about the importance of arrow weight, F.O.C, structural integrity in your broadheads, because it is a big talking point in the archery community right now. And I've got a few thoughts on it that I think might help people out. If I've already made that video, it's up in the cards. If I have not yet, then it is not in the cards. But letting me know that you want to see that video down in the comments or by subscribing to the channel will help me out a lot to figure out what people are interested in and what you might want to see next. So if you could do that, I would really appreciate it. It helps out a lot. All right, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have questions, comments, concerns, there's a comment section down below to voice them. I am always interested in what you guys are running for a hunting arrow setup, for a bow setup, whatever it happens to be. That is a spot for discussion down below. I will answer every single comment that comes through, so if you have questions, feel free to drop them down there. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Outdoor Tactics. My name is Robert, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you.